Welcome back to the DomCast, everybody. This is episode 11, as I understand it. We are moving right along through this NBA season. January came. Well, I can't say it left yet. We still got another week. I think 7 days from now would actually be the final podcast of the month. That'll move us into February. That'll move us into the All-Star game. Appreciate you all for listening, as usual. Spotify listeners, y'all have been showing out on the ratings. We almost got 400 ratings. Appreciate y'all. So, if you do listen on Spotify or Apple, you can rate it, help move the show up the algorithm, get some more listeners. Very much appreciated. The button is right there. There's a star. You just press it. It rates. It's so easy. I appreciate Spotify for doing that. Well, we are going to be talking about a couple of different topics this week. I think I'm just going to be going with things that have caught my eye. At this point, we are at the halfway point of the year. This is just how it goes. Most teams have played far more than that 41 games now. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, sheesh, the Heat are up to 47. Oh my gosh, the Suns are almost up to 50. So technically the halfway point was like a week or two ago. And things are just very, very, very interesting. Got to give a shout out to all the replacement players, the G League guys, the 10-day contract guys, as Chris Paul said, for kind of keeping the season alive, because there was a point where COVID was just breaking out so bad and health and safety protocols were dropping so many all-time performances. We did not know what was going to happen with the season. And you see, like in Miami Heat, I'll be talking about Kyle Guy a little bit later, came from the G League. When they rotate, and it's still playing right now actually because Kyle Lowry isn't there, so the rotation is a bit shortened and he's giving them valuable minutes. You've seen DeMarcus Cousins, not from the G League, but just filling in for a couple of different teams. It's just been a cool thing to see, and I'm glad the season didn't have to pause, because I don't think that would have fixed a damn thing. We went through that at that time. So it was a busy week for me, admittedly, but I've still got some interesting and different things to talk about. Lakers talk will be here as normal, but I think I'm going to do that at the end, because I just have, I'm just glad that we're bad at the same time. You know, even though Tatum dropped 50 yesterday, it's a cool experience, but I'm glad we're both trash right now in general. And it's not that the Lakers are first or second, as people thought they would be coming into the season, and Boston might not make the playoffs. It's unity, man. It's all about unity in times like this. However, we are not starting with either of those teams. We're actually be going to Philly, because they had a fascinating week in the media. So I want to start by saying you can never actually tell what trades and what trade rumors are real, what actually happened, unless it comes from Woj or it comes from Shams. You never really know. But there was a report that the Pistons made a trade offer for Ben Simmons, and that's just the NBA gods are leaning way too far into the bit, because this is literally what I said. This is literally what people were saying at the beginning, is Ben Simmons is doing all this. It's going to end up in Detroit or something, which I guess playing with Kate Cunningham would be cool, but ending up in Detroit is just never a good thing in general. Anyways, if that trade offer actually happened, it was Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Kelly Olynyk, and a first-round pick for the 76ers. Now, there's two ways to feel about it, as there is anything. But you have the dominating opinion when this broke, where people are like, that is insane that Daryl Morey wouldn't take that. It's actually three sides. There's that side. It's insane. What does Morey want? What, I guess you could say, what Morey does he want? Do I have drums on my soundboard? I guess I don't. I do. I lied. There's that. There's the other side that says this trade offer could have never actually happened. We don't know if this actually happened or not. That's a hell of a lot for Detroit to be giving up for Ben Simmons. I don't know. I'd have to dive into that one. Then there's a side that some Sixer fans take and say, hey, for Simmons, we don't need role players back. Ben Simmons is an all-star. At his best, arguably the best defender in the league. He had that argument. Of course, you go up against like Draymond Green, that becomes kind of tough, but he at least had that argument though, especially on ball, great point of attack guy. We need more than role players back, is what a lot of them are saying. Role players and then one star is not going to win you a championship. Only problem is, obviously, anytime star gets traded, you rarely get a star back. You rarely get that type of value back. So it's just difficult. I will say if this trade offer was made and Morey didn't take it, if this actually did happen, I'm not sure what they actually would take. Now, according to Morey, he went on, he got on to some podcast. We did hear his voice this week, and he got on and told people to basically stop trusting internet reports, stop trusting these things. Of course, again, that's the guy making the decisions. So, you know, if it did happen and it sounds like a great deal that most people thought would be great, would he actually admit to having turned it down? That's a different conversation. More important thing that he said was the asking price is lowering because of how good Joel Embiid is playing, or how Joel he's playing. It's basically what I said last week. Embiid is on an MVP run right now. I actually want to go to his stretch because he is putting up one of the more dominant stretches on all sides of the ball that we've seen this season. He's doing it at the same time that Jokic is also putting up a dominant stretch, so that just makes this MVP race even more fun. The thing with Embiid is I think he's taking a step as a playmaker this year too. Saw one pass he had last night against San Antonio to Furkan Korkmaz, I believe it was. Just post up, see the help coming, throws it under his other arm. Not really looking, but that's just the type of passes you come accustomed to watching Joel Embiid this year. Anyways, goddamn, 50 against Orlando in 27 minutes. That's just, of course, that would happen to the Magic. He had 40 the next game in LA, which I think might have flown a bit under the radar because they lost. So that's 90 points in 2 nights. And he had 38 last night. That's before I talk about any of the rebounds or assists. Let's just go and take this stretch from January 23rd, last night's game, to let's go to December 26th. So almost a solid. No. Let's go to December 20th. God, I could just keep going back. Let's go to December 16th. So a bit more than a month. His averages for that stretch are 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 41% from 3. So as a big man, as we know, 54% from the field. Also giving you a block and a half a game right now. The Sixers have also recovered from that start, as we said. At any moment now, they could be third in the Eastern Conference. His MVP, his charting on the MVP ladder has moved up accordingly. We'll be talking about the MVP ladder a couple topics from now. So all in all, Morey feels that pressure. I think he acknowledges much by saying, hey, the asking price is a bit lower because Embiid is having an all-time season right now. Also, as we said last week, that means you need to get this Ben Simmons thing done this year. It's unfortunate because I was always on the side of hoping that he wouldn't be able to just force his way out. But when you have a season like this from your guy who trusted your team, by the way, who already signed an extension. He did not have to sign an extension. He could have put more pressure on the front office and just said, I don't know. You can't figure this Ben Simmons thing out. We've been close a couple of times, so looking like we could contend and it falls apart. I can probably go put myself in better position. But no, he chose the Giannis route. He's put full trust in this front office. And you don't want to go into the playoffs if you're the Sixers with a roster that's just, hey, it's good and Embiid is dominant, but it's probably going to be a second round out at best. If you really, really pushed it, maybe there'd be a glimmer of hope that they could get to the conference finals, but more than likely not. You don't want to go in there with a roster like that. So kind of in the next few weeks, probably want to have this figured out. If the asking price is lower, that makes me think, okay, maybe they're starting to accept that they're not going to get another star back. Maybe it will be a package like this, like they've gotten, like they would have gotten from the Pistons. And by the way, this I didn't really discuss the offer because we don't exactly know if it's real or not, but you get a first round pick out of that. Get Kelly Olynyk, who in theory, well, I don't know how much you would play him with Embiid, but if you were using him off the bench, you got a guy, space the floor. Sadiq Bey, in theory, he's Sadiq Trey. It just kind of depends. He went on a stretch where he was hitting. He started this season, he really wasn't. Playing in Philly, maybe you would see that percentage go up. And you get Jeremy Grant, who you hope will come in and he wouldn't fill Ben Simmons' shoes defensively, but maybe give you another wing defender. It'd be interesting to see what type of scorer he'd be on that team and how he'd fit with Joel Embiid. It's not like he's an all-time shooter or anything. And the way Embiid is playing right now, I just love having as much space as humanly possible. That would have been interesting. And then in terms of having Ben Simmons on the Pistons, well, if you're Detroit, if you're a Detroit fan, are you saying you gave up too much here? Probably not, because, hey, this roster is not going anywhere as it's currently constructed. Cade Cunningham, Grant, Bey, and Olynyk is not the core of the future of the Pistons. So you can get a star in Ben Simmons, keep Cade Cunningham point guard, use Ben Simmons possibly in like the forward spot, one of the forward spots, ideally probably power forward, and go from there and just start building that way. I think you're kind of happy with Detroit because now you feel like you really have the building blocks for something and you're not just spinning your wheels. Because Cade Cunningham is having I'm having fun watching Cade Cunningham's development this year. After shaking off a slow start, he had one super nice move the other night. Just an in and out to the middle of the lane into a half spin fadeaway. That's something that you just look and say, okay, this is a rookie. That bag is going to get deeper and deeper. The passes that he makes, don't waste Cade Cunningham, Detroit. I don't want to be here in 5 years talking about, oh, damn, this guy is just, they never got him help and da-da-da. Do not waste him. Please don't waste him. So that's the Ben Simmons news as we have it. There's been a lot of smoke going up as there is around the trade deadline. More De'Aaron Fox talk. One day hearing that he was offered, the next day hearing that actually the Kings don't want to trade him and they're planning on building around him and Halliburton. Just all types of trade smoke going up right now in all directions. De'Aaron Fox, of course, had been associated with Philly. Me and Asher talked about that last week because that seems like a very logical thing since both teams are looking to move some guys like that. Seems like it would be a very logical. Hell, even Halliburton was mentioned in that. And Halliburton's been having a stretch for himself. He's been having a good season for himself. So in a situation where there's big names moving, he has definitely made himself movable. Although if I was Sacramento, I absolutely would not do that. I would not. That'd be the one guy I would not move right now. However, you get, I don't know what package it would take, but you get Halliburton in Philly. That works out beautifully. He's a great distributor. Him and Rashawn Holmes is a 1-2 punch. Imagine him and Joel Embiid shooting the ball well. I think you're going to see more improvement in that as the seasons go on. It's gonna be interesting, man. It is going to be interesting to see how Philly works this out, because I don't want to see a first seed Philly with this same roster, because I will not believe that team is getting any further than it depends on injuries, honestly, at this point, because the Bulls have basically been shredded, and although everyone is expected to be back for the playoffs, I don't know. I don't like how much they've been hit at once here. It's a very detrimental thing happening in Chicago. Still months to go though. 3 months from now we'll still, right? Oh god, 3 months from now we'll actually be right in the playoffs. Yeah, so it's really, you've got about 2.5 months to kind of figure these things out. That's basically all I have to say for the Sixers. Ben Simmons has not been moved yet, but at least we had some movement in the news. At least we had Daryl Morey. That was the funny part about it, is he said don't give any credibility to Ballsack Sports. If you're not in the Twitterverse, Ballsack Sports is a hilarious page. I am not an advocate of misinformation, but I'm sorry, that page is just funny as hell because it's so easy to get people to discuss fake quotes. That's what Ballsack Sports does. And even there's a page called Depressed Nets Fan that does the same thing. They put a picture and they put a quote that looks official. Then you'll get a bunch of people in the comments discussing it without even asking if it's real. It's just so easy to bait. And since Ballsack did that, he got Daryl Morey acknowledgement. There's a clip of him saying, don't something about Ballsack Sports, and then that page takes his quote and modifies it into saying the only credible reporter I know is Ballsack Sports. It's just incredible stuff. Incredible content. That's it for Philly right now. Until we get, I really won't discuss it again until we get like a legitimate trade offer or an actual trade. So be on the lookout for that in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Speaking of trades, unfortunate news in Indiana. Myles Turner, I believe this happened once again. Every time I drop a podcast, some shit pops off like that day after I've already dropped it. Myles Turner has a stress reaction in his foot that's going to sideline him through the trade deadline. You were paying attention, Myles Turner and Sabonis, and Caris LeVert, those are all 3 guys that had been mentioned and Indiana's possible trade movements, especially Myles Turner. Talk about a guy, rim protector. In theory, you're going to be able to trade for him. He's also going to be your big man that's going to stretch the floor for you. That sounds like something any contender could use. We were starting to dream of, oh, what if the Warriors finessed him? Although I don't think there's any possible way that could happen. Of course, the Lakers, THT and a pick is always floated out. Anyways, this is bad content. This is bad content because now I don't know if they could move him, and I'm not even sure if a contending team wants to move for him. If a contending team moves for him now, I'm gonna assume the price has gone way down, and Indy might as well just hold on to him at this point, right? Because he's not a free agent anytime soon, off the top of my head, and so you don't want to his value being a big man with a stretch reaction in your foot. Who knows what type of contributions he's going to be able to put towards the team this year? Okay. Wow, next year is the last year on his contract. Damn, that puts Indy in more of a bind than I realized. He's under contract for this year, 2022 season. Then next year, 18 million, 2023. So on that last year of your contract, it really goes down because the team has to start to get some kind of commitment that you're going to stay, or it's a gamble trading for you. It's a gamble giving anything up for you. So that's the issue next season. And this season now, it's the foot injury on a big man, and not even really knowing. Is that if he does recover and he plays for your contending team, is he going to be out by the playoffs? So you really don't want to give up anything of value for him at that point. Damn, that is unfortunate for the Pacers because they were looking to blow it up, and I think he had good value as you get closer to the trade deadline. Now you're probably looking more at Sabonis and Karis LeVert to give you a haul. Wow, yeah, that's interesting news. I don't know who's interested in it now. He goes from something that could get you a haul to really a low risk, high reward type thing, I guess is how you would be looking at it. Or high risk, high reward. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I don't know if Myles Turner's going to be traded now. If it was my team and they were contending, I probably would just start looking elsewhere. But we'll see what happens with that. That's also in the trade news. All right, now we can get into some of the very interesting things, because as much as I like trades, again, it's hard to decipher what's real, what's not right now. And there will be plenty of movement and plenty of trade talk to talk about on one of these podcasts. We will now be moving to some injury talk. And this is just, everything is all bad for the Bulls, man. They can't have shit. Bulls and Cleveland are two teams, well, and Detroit, but specifically Bulls and Cleveland, because we've seen them actually become good this year. Even one of them contending level. They just can't have anything. Chicago Bulls randomly lost Levine. The man just turned slightly and tweaked something in his knee, and he disappeared since then. Derrick Jones Jr. got hurt on the first play of a game. He's out. Lonzo Ball is now going to be out, what did they say, a month plus? Because of meniscus surgery. We should be very familiar with meniscus injuries now. You know that there's two options with that surgery. One sees you basically miss the season. Another, or I think they shave it down or something like that, can get you back on the court that same season. That's the operation that Derrick Rose had in 2015 that let him come back and have a pretty good playoff run. So it doesn't wash you by any means. At that moment, I don't know. Once you keep having issues with your knees, I think it leads to that. But right now, we're just focused on what it's doing right now. Lonzo Ball is gone for a while. That's defense, extra three-point shooting, it's playmaking. It's been one of the biggest reasons that the Bulls have been where they are this year. On top of that, Alex Caruso, a wrist injury, also going to be sidelined. I think it's either the same or longer for him. What, 6 to 8 weeks? He might be gone 2 months. 2 months from now, you will be at the end of March. That one is a little bit more interesting because with Lonzo, I don't even know when it happened. Alex Caruso went up, and who other than Grayson Allen took him down out of the air. Caruso landed on his side, right on his wrist. His entire body landed on his wrist. Boom. That's how quick it happens. So, and Caruso, obviously, you're missing an entire chunk of your defense because the Bulls have and will put him on absolutely anybody. So for the regular season, that's just on the surface before we talk about Caruso's his injury and what actually happened there. They're already, because the East is so tight, slid down to third. I don't know yet when Levine is going to come back. DeRozan's going to do what he can. But it's very easy to see Chicago sliding out of that top 4 right now. That is just very easy. I'd be pleasantly shocked if they were able to hang on. And it's unfortunate because as a team, they were having a great year. DeRozan was having more than a resurgence. He never really fell off or anything. It was just, man, he was basically playing at superstar level, and he was having the comfort to do so. But now, by necessity, he's basically going to have to keep them afloat. So I'm sure that'll affect his game a bit. What happens with the Chicago Bulls? It's going to be interesting, but the Grayson Allen conversation. On this week's episode of Everything in Life is Optics. Didn't I tell you? Everything in life is optics, because it doesn't matter whether Grayson Allen meant to do that or not. What had happened was he went up to block him with one arm, and then the second arm came and dragged Caruso out of air. That's the one I think most people take issue with, because there, believe it or not, are Grayson Allen defenders out there. There are Grayson Allen defenders. I mean, I guess that's not hard to believe. But there are people saying, oh, it's just a basketball play, get over it, oh, you guys cry for 80s basketball, which I've really seen a shift in it. I kind of feel like that's an old argument, because I feel like most of the internet now talks down on older basketball more than they hype it up. Anyways, that's a different conversation. That second swing and how violently it took him out of the air, and the fact that it led to an injury, the majority are just not going to give a player like Grayson Allen a pass for that. And it's so awkward because I have wondered, in watching the Milwaukee Bucks defend him this week, I really have wondered to myself, how much do they believe themselves? So how many players were on the Bucks who weren't teammates with Grayson for a while? How many of them thought a certain way about him while he was in college or on another team? How many of them thought a certain way and then this week had to come out and say, oh no, that's our brother, he's not a dirty player, he didn't mean it? Looking at Drew Holiday, because you kind of have to, especially for the continuity of your team and the chemistry, and you're going for a title. You can't really just throw him under the bus and say, yeah, he tried to hurt him. You can't do that. And it's horrible PR. So who knows what they actually think. He has a history, obviously. I don't really need to spend 10 minutes on the podcast talking about the history of Grayson Allen. He has a 5-minute compilation, I think, that's a couple of years old, of these type of incidents, not necessarily injuring players, but just very questionable plays that are either bordering on dirty or are definitely dirty. So you just kind of got to understand that for the Grayson Allen defenders out there, for those of you that are saying it's a basketball play, you just kind of have to understand when you see that second arm take him out of air, and then you look at his history, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. And there's just certain hills that I don't think are worth dying on. Y'all hear me say that all the time, right? Certain arguments I don't make because I just don't think it's worth dying on that hill. Why die on the Grayson Allen hill? And you know the history. Why die? Like, you're not going to win this one. It's just not going to happen. He was suspended for a game, and Caruso, yeah, he practically hurt a player, man. Practically hurt a player. And it's a weird week for the Milwaukee Bucks, because the same time that happened, not the same time, but in the same week that happened, Wesley Matthews, for those of you who aren't paying any attention, yes, he is on the Bucks again. He's been on the Bucks and he's been having a pretty good season. Anyways, he got hurt, and there was a full minute of gameplay before Mike Budenholzer called a timeout. And when I say hurt, I mean like visibly and uncomfortably hurt. Something happened to his ankle or knee. I don't know which one. And he was limping around the court, and he never shook it off. He ran to the corner. He was limping down, back on defense. He was limping around, rotating. When the ball went the other way, he was still limping. And then by the end of it all, he went, and I don't even think he made it to the bench. I think he sat down by the scorer's table. And I say, what the fuck?
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
How, Sway?
I have never... The closest thing I've seen to that was one time many years ago, I think 2009, 2010, when Melo, I think he got hit or something happened. I think he just lost the ball and laid down. And he just stayed laid down and nobody called a timeout. But I have no clue. That was a really weird situation. This one was just, somebody had to see that on the floor. And at the same week that the Grayson Allen thing happens, and then the Milwaukee Bucks Twitter account tweeted out a Grayson Allen GIF after that happened of him eating a donut, and then they had to start blocking people. Yes, the actual Milwaukee Bucks account had to start blocking people. Just a very weird moral week for the defending champs, who I don't know if this one week will make them villains. I feel like a lot of people don't I can't even say a lot of people don't dislike Giannis for the amount of overlooking that they try to do. I can't even say that. I don't know. It's a weird week for the Bucks. On the well, technically that's basketball side, but on the non-X's and O side, just a very weird week. But yeah, man, for Chicago, like, what do you do with this? Just to get you, let's just look at like the last game they played so you can get an idea. So they lost to the Magic last night, which also I'll be doing a little bit of Jalen Suggs talk, because there's a couple of funny things that happened in that game. Actually, I think I might transition to that next. Yeah, DeRozan, who had 41 points, you probably didn't even hear about it because they lost to Orlando, so nobody cares. This is the kind of nights he's gonna have now, because on top of that, who was starting with him? Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Vooch, who went 4 of 19, Tyler Cook. You know who that is? Bro, one of the players here that got minutes, Malcolm Hill, I kid you not, there's an NBA logo. He's from the G League, by the way. I think he's on a two-way contract now. There's an NBA logo on his profile picture. So this whole Bulls team has profile pictures. Malcolm Hill has an NBA logo. That's what Chicago's now dealing with. They've got talent there. I don't think Kobe White has been having a half bad season, and I'm really high on the potential of Ayo Dosunmu. But when you really have to lean in to that type of production from guys who I'm just saying, oh, you know, they're good in this role and they're developing, that's not a great situation that Chicago finds himself in at all. So then you go and you lose to Orlando Magic. When it kind of lead me to some Jalen Suggs talk. First of all, hilarious thing that happened. Mo Wagner, my bad. Mo Wagner, foul. He did a take foul on DeMar DeRozan, and DeRozan got mad. Anytime you're losing to the Orlando Magic or you're in a competitive game with the Orlando Magic, you're probably frustrated. He got mad, and Bulls broadcast called him Franz Wagner 3 times, 3 consecutive times. And I'm like, Mo was gonna have to just deal with that now. Maybe not. That was just Chicago's broadcast being shitty, because they don't really look that much alike in my opinion. But in fact, he plays on a team with his brother who is better than him already and is going to be significantly better probably. You're gonna have to deal with being the Wagner brother in the shadows. Anyways, though, Jalen Suggs, he's back. If you didn't know, he is a rookie that has probably completely fallen off your radar because this is such a talented class. And if you aren't making a name for yourself right now, at least as a role player, you're just not being heard from. When you have guys like Evan Mobley being where they are at the top of the standings and having one of the better rookie seasons we've seen, when you have Scotty Barnes doing a lot better than people thought he would. Hell, when you have Franz Wagner, you on that same team as Suggs, it's very easy to forget about it. You think about the Magic, you think about Franz Wagner right now, so it's very easy to just go ahead and forget Jalen Suggs exists. But he was a top pick, man. One of the 2 Jalens to be a top pick. And it's an interesting situation in Orlando because that's something I talk about with my Magic fan friends. Yes, they do exist. It's just how they plan on figuring out this more or less clusterfuck of young guys that they have. But Suggs has shown flashes anyways, long story short. So Suggs has shown flashes. Last night, he, aside from the dunks that he had, I think he dunked on DeRozan once, and he also had a crazy 360. It gave us some nice Terrence Ross reactions. I'm not sure which dunk did that. But I'm most excited for him defensively. I think he's got to develop there, obviously. As far as being an on-ball defender right now, there is absolutely some things to clean up. But off-ball, you've seen in a Magic game last night, playing passing lanes well, being able to read where the ball is going, getting some steals that way. I think like 2 or 3 seasons down the road, you're going to see him navigating screens a little bit better. And that's going to start to give the Magic maybe some type of defensive identity, which is where they will pretty much have to, pretty much what they kind of should lean into, because you're going to get Jonathan Isaac back, allegedly. I don't know. He might decide he just wants to write books and make bullshit documentaries now for a living. Who knows? Anyways, though, he could come back at some point and be important to the Magic's defense, and all of a sudden you're dealing with Suggs. You got Jonathan Isaac there, and you got to build the rest out. But that would be fascinating. And I am also interested in the dynamic that creates between he and Cole Anthony, because y'all know how I feel about having 2 guys that look like they should be point guards, but they're playing together. So I think since Suggs just came back, he's now started 3 times. He's played more than that, probably about 6 games. I just can't help but notice though, since Suggs came back, and I'm not gonna lie and say I know that it's fully correlated, but since Suggs came back, Cole Anthony's games, they just have not been that great. I think Suggs comes back on the 14th. Since then, you're seeing some poor shooting nights from Cole. I'm wondering, so again, talking to Magic fans, some of them tell me they're like, hey, I like the idea of Cole playing more off ball. I like that, but I don't. Cole is 6'2". I never want to see him be a starting. If that's the way the Magic go, like, I don't want to see the Magic come out next year with the starting lineup of Suggs point guard, Cole Anthony 2, Isaac, I don't know, Franz 3, Isaac 4, and then Carter 5. And then I don't even want to see Cole at point and then Suggs at 2 either. Me and Asher talked about this last week. I dislike that idea. I think either one of them are better suited for the development down the road as points. But we'll see how it works out. Again, for Suggs right now, I think it's definitely, I'm higher on his defense. You're playing for the Atlanta Magic. You've been out most of the season. I'm not really rating your shooting, I guess. Coming in, that's probably why he fell out of most people's, that's why he fell off most people's radar, because he wasn't shooting the ball well at all. On the season overall, it's what, 24% from 3, 25% from 3 on a good amount of attempts per game, shooting almost 5 of them. So it's pretty piss poor. However, since he's came back, has he been shooting that a little bit better? Because again, most of it for me is just the defensive end. Since he's came back, he's averaging 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Yeah, so it's still, he's not even really shooting threes at all right now. So it's not leaning into it that heavily. That's good. It's only taking about 2 a game, 20%. But yeah, I'm glad to see him. I'm glad to see him back, and I'm glad to see that there is some type of production there, because that's just yet another rookie that you might be able to look at and say, hey, at least for next year or another year down the road, you might really get something from this guy. Pretty much like Jalen Green. This season, everything from him is just flashes. It's unfortunate. The Rockets have kind of been in an unfortunate situation as well. Just trying to figure out which route they're going, because now I'm starting to see them in trade rumors too that don't make any sense. And then I saw one that said they're looking for, and this is why I don't discuss too many trade rumors, because you just don't know what's real. One that said they're looking for a star guy. Like, why is a team like that looking for a star guy in trades? That doesn't make any sense. They're a building team with a guy that you hopefully just drafted that can be your star and that you can build to be your star. And the timeline for that team does not make sense at all for you to get a star player at the moment, unless you think you're about to build a duo with Christian Wood. I don't know. But yeah, flashes from Jalen Green, flashes from Jalen Suggs. The Jays, who will end up making a redraft very interesting in a couple of years, given who came behind them. All right, that's enough Orlando Magic talk. I'm not gonna go to Bismack yet. I can't go straight from the Orlando Magic talking to Bismack Biyombo talk. How about Celtics talk? Not Jason Tatum scoring 50. We know he can do that. He's gonna go off sometimes. He's gonna have another game down the road where he shoots 2 of 9 from 3. That's just what happens this season. But no, we were involved in a trade. After Asher got up here last week and told me Bol Bol is the worst player in the world, he ended up on the Boston Celtics. We won't see him this year. He had surgery. Even if he did come back in time to play, doubt he'd get any minutes. I still don't know how he's going to get minutes on this squad. But yes, he is a Boston Celtic. I think we sent away Honcho. Then and it's a 3-team deal, so Bryn Forbes ended up on the Nuggets as well. So just first of all, yeah, Bol Bol and the Celtics again. I have no real expectations. Y'all heard my whole, well, I really didn't talk much about it. It was really more Asher that talked about it on last week. I just said I was excited to see him on a tanking team so that he could get some minutes. Being in Boston, who is a squad that is desperately trying to figure out the future right now between the 2 Jays, the different Jays, not Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs, but the other Jays, Jason and Jalen. Oh, another Jalen. Damn, how many Jalens are in the NBA? Anyways. Yeah, they're desperately trying to figure that out. I assume there'll be moves over the summer. I don't know if they're going to be active or how active they could be in the trade market this year, because any big trade would have to involve Brown or probably Marcus Smart. But to get Bol Bol back, yeah, okay. Those are my thoughts. Okay. I don't know when he'll play. I hope, all jokes aside, I hope we see him on the main Celtics more first. I hope we put him down there. I know we have Aaron Naismith that has played some games. That's a G League affiliate. I want to see Bol there and develop. I just don't see where he's going to have a slot here or any time here at the moment. And I am more than fine with this sounding stupid in a year if he's now the power forward to center that fixed our issues. But I just don't feel like that's going to happen. Bryn Forbes on the Nuggets though is a solid move. That's a solid sneaky move. So they didn't get that deal done with the Pistons, but they got this one done. You bring in a shooter, bring in a 3-point shooter. I believe he's like what? He's a top. I gotta have some of these stats ready because off the top of my head, I want to say Bryn Forbes is like top 3 in percentages or something like that. I think I saw that somewhere. But anyways, good 3-point shooter. If you can run around and come off screens or just be open in general, yeah, 41% from 3 this year. So if you can just find yourself open in general on a team with Jokic, that is good. You know, we had resident Nuggets fan on the pod last week telling us about, you know, them possibly getting healthy this year. So you get Jamal Murray back. I don't personally think you're going to see any Michael Porter Jr. I don't even think that's a possibility. But you at least get Jamal back. Nuggets could be at very least interesting because when you have Jokic who consistently puts up the most ridiculous stats and they're just kind of chugging along quietly and hanging around that 4 or 5 spot, it could get fun in a first round is what I'll say. Solid pickup for the Nuggets, very solid pickup because Jokic can play with anybody, and I look forward to many corner skip passes or skip passes to the wing from Jokic to Bryn Forbes. That's all I have to say about that trade. Let's go to the MVP race before I do Bismack Biyombo talk. Gotta kind of break it up, right? We're gonna talk about the Orlando Magic and some of these other things. You gotta kind of break it up. Orlando Magic and Bol Bol. Gotta get to some meat. The MVP race is so much fun. I think I saw Rusty Buckets talking about maybe this being the most competitive one he's seen, and I had to kind of go back to what year was that? It was Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, James Harden. There was one like that, and I made a video about it. I believe that was either 17 or 18. Either way, that one was really fun. It kind of didn't come apparent. It didn't really become apparent who was winning that until like the very end. Either way, Jokic had a 49-point, 14 rebound, 10 assist outing against the Clippers this week, where the ladder makers could no longer deny him. He is now first. That is fun. That is fun because the Nuggets are 6th with not great hopes of getting any higher than 5. Now, Donovan Mitchell has been health and safety protocol. He's missed some games, so 4 and 5 is getting a little bit closer. And so technically the 4 spot could be coming up for grabs. That is a possibility. It's not one that you would bet on, because if Jokic gets into a top 4 spot, I think that would pretty much seal it. If you count on anything, count on Jokic having like 27 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds damn near every night. So, and then you get a performance like this every other, I don't know, he did what, every other month or something like that, where it's just like one of the greatest performances you've ever seen from a big man. So yeah, that would be enough to probably wrap it up if he were to get the 4th. But even right now, leading at 6, it's nuts. Kevin Durant went out, so he's just going to fall and fall and fall. Then he's going to come back to a team that Kyrie has played some games on. I'm not sure with a month or 2 left if he'll be able to fight his way back to the top, but this MVP race is just ever changing. With averages of 26, 14, and 7.5 assists per game, Jokic is leading, man. Jokic is leading, and the conversation I've been having this week is just saying, look, whether Jokic wins or not, he is the most valuable player. And you normally don't see me go that route because it sounds like I'm going to be on the robbed train, which I'm not. I just don't do that because I always understand how MVP is voted on. But it would be very hard to argue anybody is more valuable to their team. This Nuggets team who has been injured to hell, who's just kind of been, when Will Barton is your second option and you got guys playing behind Jokic that most people probably don't even know. And then when you affect every single part of the game at an elite level, you affect passing at an elite level, affect rebounding at an elite level, scoring at an elite level. And that Nuggets game, out of how many points they had, what did they end with? 130 points, I believe. Was Jokic responsible for like over half of those? I believe. Yeah, he definitely was. If not over half, at least half. Somebody had the calculation out there. But even when he's not scoring 50 points, he affects every single part of the game like that. The Nuggets, I am going to say, would probably be a lottery squad without him. So those are two extremes in terms of what he affects and what his team would be without him. When you have those extremes, you are the most valuable player. However, that does not mean he's going to win it. That doesn't mean he's going to win it. You look at who these teams have left to play. You look at how guys are performing. You look at who's slumping and who isn't. And it just feels very likely that by the end of it, you're going to have Giannis, who also affects both sides of the ball at an elite level. So as Jokic is having his best defensive season and it's no longer a liability, Giannis Antetokounmpo is MVP level defender, MVP level offensive player. And the Bucks have a great chance of finishing around first. So I would be shocked at that point if Jokic, who was fifth, won it over him. But I would still say, yeah, he's the most valuable player in the league. I just don't know a player more valuable than that right now, this season. Even in games that the Bucks don't have Giannis, it feels like they can be competitive. If they have a Jrue Holiday, they have Chris Middleton, they can be competitive in those games. They can win some of those games. Nuggets without Jokic for any extended amount of time, oh boy, that would get all kinds of sloppy. And still with that, that's why I don't understand people's frustration or anger towards the MVP race when these type of things happen. Because I'm not going to be kicking and screaming if you do give it to Giannis. Because he's great too. Almost averaging 30 a game is very close with 11 rebounds and 6 assists. So he too is affecting all parts. And then that's without, because there's not great stats to talk about defense unless you go to the advanced ones. He also is affecting pretty much every part of the game at an elite level. Of course, not 3-point shooting or hell, even mid-range. I wouldn't call him an elite mid-range player, but he's improved. But yeah, he's affecting it too, so I'm not going to kick and scream if he does get it. He's second right now. Embiid also knocking on that door. He's third. We talked about him at the beginning. I think this season more than any, especially because Ben Simmons is gone. And he commented on that last night. You're seeing him as more of a playmaker. Just interesting because that just goes to show you roles, right? Obviously not necessarily... Well, no, not necessarily. Not a Jokic level playmaker. It's not the same passer Jokic is. It's not a slight. Nobody really is. But because you're seeing him in more of that role, you're seeing more of what he can do. Just makes you wonder with these elite players, what could they do if certain things were asked of them? Because what Jokic does is asked for him, and he delivers more. And now they're saying Embiid, hey, we need you to make some high level plays. We need you to take on some of those floor general qualities. Last night he had who was it? Furkan Korkmaz and Charlie Brown. He's from Delaware, Blue Coast, so I've seen him a couple of times this year. He had them swap sides before he set a screen. So he pointed out, I think Charlie Brown was on the weak side corner. Told him swap and put Furkan in that corner. And he set a screen, got the ball, sent it to the side. You get a 3 out of it. That's playmaking. That is playmaking. That's floor general qualities. And those type of things are cool to see. I always love to see processes like that play out in real time. That's what you're getting from Embiid this year, and he has to carry that. Philly without him too would probably collapse. Although they didn't have him for a long time. Beginning of the season, in which it was at the very beginning, but their record did get significantly worse when that did happen. So there you go with that. KD's falling. He's not here. Chris Paul is actually 5th at the moment. So it's fun to go back to the very beginning of the season where I said I thought that Devin Booker would have a better chance at MVP this year if there was a Suns player there. But yeah, it's the floor general qualities of Chris Paul. They're really shining because Aiden has been in and out, and they've given him Bismack Biyombo. You saw Jalen Smith for the last month or so. JaVale McGee's having I feel like I say JaVale McGee's having a great season off the bench every single podcast, but he went through so many Shaq and a Fool segments and so many darker parts of his career. I just feel like I have to not let that go. JaVale McGee has been great, but also Chris Paul can just help anybody, help any big man, as long as they can roll correctly, so they can set a screen properly, they can roll correctly, they can roll intelligently, or even make themselves valuable as a short roller, he can help. He can maximize you. That's kind of what's happening this year. And the Suns are first. And so he's in the race. But once again, ain't no Steve Nash MVPs coming out here. Averaging 14 and 10. You would have to, multiple players would have to slump for Chris Paul to win it. And I also told you, I love Chris Paul's game. Love the point guard. After that Giannis incident last year, where Giannis could have been seriously hurt, I don't even know. I feel away. I was cheering for the Chris Paul championship timeline all the way into that moment. It's not important. Whatever. Steph Curry fell out of the top 5, man. Steph Curry fell out of the top 5. Ja Morant is officially on the ladder, so that's cool. Steph Curry fell out of the top 5. And last night, he did not have a good game against the Donovan Mitchell-less Jazz. They still won, but it's yet another slump for Super Steph. Not Super Steph. This is base form Steph right now. So, as we did for Embiid with the stretch, I really have to see how far this slump goes back. I made a video this week. I mentioned, or last week, made a mention of Steph Curry and his slump and saying that I'm not really worried about it. But also, I had this thought already because we saw the thing happen with Damian Lillard earlier this year and the slump that was seemingly inexplicable. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, he's got to be hurt because I've never seen a player just randomly be bad over an offseason with no injury. He hasn't significantly aged. I've never seen this happen. And lo and behold, now he's out. He had to have surgery. So all along, Lillard was hurt. Steph Curry, I'm starting to wonder the same thing because once again, it's not just teams that are defending him aggressively. You play in the Warrior system, you're going to get good looks. Steph still gets good looks. I've been saying that. It's not just, oh, teams have figured him out. Well, of course, nobody ever figures Steph out. Or that teams are able to load up on him. No, he's curling off of screens and missing shots that he would normally make if he had that type of daylight. And he's just not making some of those. I don't have the official count. You have to rely on smarter people than me for that. But he's absolutely missing those type of shots. And that's where you start to wonder, okay, and maybe even on the moments where he is closely guarded and he doesn't get the same separation, that's where you start to kind of wonder, okay, is there something we don't know about? And somebody asked him about that last night, and he gave an answer to me that's like, it was like saying yes without yes. Somebody asked him, is there some physical thing that's going on? And all he said was, who gives a damn about excuses? Now, that doesn't mean yes. Of course, that could just mean don't even bring it up. That could mean that. But just with this slump too, you start to wonder if there is something we don't know. Do know he hurt his wrist a couple of games ago, but also he was slumping before that, so you can't attribute it to that. And so last night you get 13 points, shot 5 of 20, shot 1 of 13 from 3. And it's also fascinating because Steph is just in general not having even close to his best season. As some will point out, yeah, he still shoots above league average, but okay, he's the greatest shooter of all time. So of course him regressing is still going to get you above league average. Yeah, like a bad, it's hilarious that a bad shooting 3 season for him, or an average 3-point shooting season for him is 38%. But when you're a guy that, before that, what was his lowest before that? 41%. So he's gone a couple of notches down here. From the field, shooting 41%. That effective field goal percentage is not stellar. It's his lowest, because I don't count 2020. He only played 5 games, so yeah, it's the lowest of his career. A lot of these are the lowest of his career. Still averaging 26 points, of course, because of his gravity. He's always going to impact the game in a positive way. But none of that covers up the fact that this is a slump. You can't explain the slump away by saying, oh, gravity, or oh, plus minus. You cannot explain the slump. This is not the Steph that they need when it's time to go against a Suns team or a Bucks team or whoever on the way to a championship. It can't just. It's kind of like how last week I was saying about Westbrook. We're not giving out little nuggets of praise for doing basic things when you getting paid $44 million. When you have as much on you as Steph has, certain things just aren't good enough for what they need. And specifically, it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the season. Their second best creator with the ball as of the season is Jordan Poole, which is not an ideal situation going into the playoffs trying to win a championship. That's not. It's cool, and then it's a great release valve to have so that Klay doesn't have to do so much. as he's obviously right now, I'm not really taking into account a lot of what's going on because I know he's trying to get himself back into shape. I know he's trying to get his rhythm. So I think we see him taking a lot of shots that might not necessarily be in the diet in a couple of months from now. But yeah, Steph is still gonna have to carry quite a bit. Just like 2015, I think that 2015 run, that was some of people's biggest concerns, aside from back then when the 3-point shot just wasn't quite as popular and we still had Charles Barkley saying teams who live and die by 3 can't win championships. It was still like, hey, Steph is the on-ball creator for that team, and when it's not him, okay, yeah, Clay's gonna run off screens and all this, but there's nobody else you really want to depend on in a series creating with the ball. And so he's gotta be super Steph, man. To get to his slump, I didn't look at the game logs. Like, how long is this slump going on now? Like, fuck, you see 12-point nights here, 9-point nights for, like, this is insanity. If you go back to, okay, he had 46 on Memphis back on the 23rd. Started the season off great. If you just pick from the Miami game now, since the Miami game where he scored 9 points, that's the beginning of this month. Let's just take this month for January, averaging, so since January 3rd, yeah, it's averaging 20 points, 7 assists, so that's cool. But 27% from 3, dog. 27% from 3, 35% from the field. Obviously not having Draymond Green, also a big thing for your playmaking. I do want to say this. Things turn around quickly. Months ago, especially when he had that Clippers game, it was looking like, okay, there's a certain number of guys hurt. There's a certain number of guys who are obviously not going to be able to seed that high. This looks like an easy MVP for Steph. And now the question in January is, damn, can he even get back into the MVP race? Because he slumped so hard for a good amount of time now. And there's so many other guys who haven't slumped. Giannis hasn't really slumped. Jokic can't slump. You start to wonder, okay, NBA is a very what have you done for me lately league, but when is the point where he has to start to turn this around and turn it back into Super Steph to even have a chance at winning? Because the MVP race is so crowded. If it wasn't crowded, it'd be one thing. If it wasn't crowded, you could get me to believe that, okay, you get to around March and he really turns it up and the Warriors finish first, you can probably finesse a win, and maybe you even still can. But the fact that it's so crowded, you do get me to kind of wonder, is there a way for him to win it this season? Which is not the goal, by the way. An MVP is cool, but obviously the goal is a championship, so it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just wild given how he started the season, and when the Warriors were still a surprise, that's what merely made it feel like, okay, it's another Steph MVP year. So where we are at this moment, I don't know. The ladder, it's gonna change. It's gonna keep changing. But that's just a couple of worries for Golden State at the moment. It's January, but we are quickly also approaching February. It's just got to get to a point where he's not just having decent games. It's got to get to a point where he's back to like top point guard in the league level. And right now it's scary. And where you wonder how, while he's trying to work himself out of a slump and Klay Thompson is trying to work himself into a rhythm, or as Curry's trying to work himself back into rhythm and Klay's trying to work himself into rhythm, you really wonder how that might end up conflicting. So that's what's going on with the Warriors. That's what's going on with Steph. Gonna keep watching. I really hope we don't just randomly get a notification one day like, oh, Steph out indefinitely. He's dealing with this injury we didn't know he had. That would be a fucking bummer, because I'm not looking forward to the Western Conference being a one-team conference in terms of contenders. Because the Los Angeles Lakers, I don't want to talk about them yet. I talk about them every week, fam. I don't want to talk about them to the end. You can talk about the Suns, who are first and who have just been finding ways. And one of those ways is Bismack Biyombo in our year 2022. This is hilarious for many different reasons. First of all, I just wanted to screenshot this. It is totally meaningless. But Rudy Gobert per 100 this season. 24 points, 3.5 blocks, 1.2 steals, 1.7 assists. Bismack Biyombo per 100 this season. 24.3 points, 3 blocks, 2.1 steals, 3.3 assists. Totally useless information, obviously. Bismack hadn't played that much. However, he is having a legit impact on the Suns. He came in on one of those 10 days, I believe. It was weird to me at the moment because I thought Jalen Smith was doing fine. They bring him, and then you had JaVale McGee too. So I was like, okay, you're gonna have Aiden back consistently. How many bigs do you need? Bismack comes in, and he's making plays. He's blocking shots. He is working in the pick and roll with Chris Paul filling in, and the Suns are winning. Specifically, what you see happen against the Pacers, his rolls just destroyed them. He would roll, and he would either take defenders with him and give somebody an open shot. He would be wide open under the basket. He would finish around contact, or his role would take defenders from the corner and he would make a quick decision about which corner to go to and get an assist out of it. Bismack Biyombo, the roller, was happening while Aaron Rodgers was getting packed up. And it's been happening actually. So I think this is just, the Pacers game was one of the most egregious examples. And so that's working. He's got a legitimate role on the squad. No pun intended, I promise. And for the Suns, it's just building depth in a season when you need it. Because Aiden's going to come back, and McGee's got that second option. But if something should happen to either one of them, you got Sticks, who you can use if you have to. And you got Biyombo, who you know is going to be ready if you have to. So it's not necessarily that you're going to be using all those guys, but maybe there's series where they'll need that skill set more than others, and they'll be able to plug that in. Or like I said, something unfortunate happens, now you know you're good. That's very important. That's like of the ilk of the Miami Heat right now. Same thing. If you need it, if you need a Kyle guy, he's there. So Phoenix Suns are just steadily rolling, man. They are just steadily rolling. 30-9 at this point in the season, I believe. 37-9, 36-9 at this point. Because of this Draymond Green being out and Steph Slump, they're now 3 games behind the Suns, and so it's starting to look like they might be able to lock up home court advantage for the season. Actually, because nobody in the East at this point might get close to their record if they're able to stay healthy. 9-1 in their last 10, 6-game win streak. Paul just being a floor general every night. Devin Booker comes out last week with a 48-point performance. It is rolling, man. They look like a team that was in the finals last year, which is what I like about a squad that people say wouldn't have been there if there weren't injuries, which obviously I kind of agree with that. But it's important how you respond to that. And so you don't come out and be a 4th or 5th seed. The Suns are fun. The Suns are deep. And at this point, they're one of 2 teams that I believe in to make the finals in the West. So we will see where that goes. The Bismack Biyombo experience, though, I suggest you pay a little bit of attention to. I also suggest paying attention to Dallas, because what the hell? It's got to be infuriating being a Dallas fan. Top of my head, from when I looked, they are 4th in defensive rating, but then they are all the way back there in offensive rating. And so, but because of that, they've been able to actually string something together. They are 5th in the Western Conference right now, 7 games above 500. As I mentioned earlier, Donovan Mitchell out. So there's been some shifts there where the top 4 is no longer locked in. There's actually an opportunity, if you are Dallas, to maybe get up to 4th. Still have a hard time once Utah is healthy, once everything is set back to normal. I don't know if they'll be able to catch it, but it's a possibility now. Luka, I feel like he's starting to whip himself, or not really whip himself back into shape, because he started the season where he wasn't in the best shape, but I feel like he's doing a little bit better lately. The Mavericks in general, defensively, are wrong fucking page. They're 3rd in opponent's points per game. They are 4th in defensive rating, but then they're 22nd in offensive rating and 25th in points per game. That's got to be infuriating, because I think in today's NBA it's probably harder to put together a solid defensive scheme or a defensive plan or be a top defensive team, because that's in the end what'll be the difference in you winning a championship or not. So, and you have an all-time offensive player in Luka, but then you start to look at your second and your thirds and you say, okay, Kristaps Porzingis, rim protector, cool, and he's definitely important. He's integral to their defense. However, he's not the Kristaps Porzingis from New York. It's not consistently going to be your second, your go-to guy. And then, okay, Jalen Brunson is nice, but is that our second option of the future? And it's probably no. I even heard that a rumor that the Celtics were interested. And Mavericks fans tell me that's not happening unless they get Jaylen Brown, which is, not gonna happen right now, anyways. But yeah, that would just catch you off guard completely, because I feel like Dallas has more or less the same team as they had last year, a very similar team, and feels like they might run into the same offensive problems when it comes to the playoffs. So it's not a team that's really any interest, that is very interesting to follow. But it is going to be fun to see. It's really not, fam. This is still a first round team. There's no Clippers for them to deal with, but this year, still a first round team though. They've upped their transition defense this year because of the way their offense is played. So they get back a little bit better. That has definitely contributed to it. That has just got to be the most infuriating thing in the world, though, because if they had a consistent second next to Luka, or if they had a second star, or they had a better moving offense, you would be looking at a possible title contender. So that's basically, I just wanted to put the Mavericks in your ear, honestly. I don't make a habit of digging into teams on the podcast that feel like they're going to go out the same way as they did. At the moment, they'd be playing Utah in the first round. Anything's possible, but I think Utah would win that series. Utah would win that series. I don't think they're a championship contender, but that doesn't mean I'm going to fully disrespect them. But yeah, we'll see. I guess the other reason I wrote it down is just seeing what type of activity they would make at the trade deadline, and if there would be a move that they could make that doesn't compromise. I mean, to me, their defense is more scheme-wide. It has more to do with scheme than personnel, in my opinion. That's why it also is confusing to follow them this way and see them be that high in defensive rating, because you look at it and you say, okay, who's like the premier defender here? And it's a lot of, again, transition adjustments, but then also keeping Luka out of certain actions and switching whenever he is involved. It's things like that too. So I'm not even sure if there's a trade out there that would compromise it if they were trying to get better on offense. But they're not also in like a go for it position this season either. So I don't know. We'll see what they do at the deadline. I know Brunson has to draw some interest from other teams. I'm interested in him. But it feels like he's got to draw some interests. It feels very likely that he'll be drawing interest from other squads. That's my Dallas Mavericks talk for now. If they end up like fourth, I'll probably dig in a little bit deeper. Or if they make a trade, I'll dig in a little bit deeper. But I did want to put that across your table. Speaking of trades, did talk a little bit earlier about trade rumors. This one isn't a rumor, actually, straight from Shams. The Nets are making Millsap available. They've agreed that they're going to work with him to find another team. Now we're in the who needs an older power forward talk, because low key, it's very easy to forget he's on the team. We've barely seen him since the beginning. They signed him. You kind of wondered what kind of value he'd be able to bring. Also, when they signed him, I believe that was at a time when we thought they would have a full big three. So it was just like, okay, he can come in and hit mid-range shots sometimes. That's all they really need from him. And then we know that didn't happen. So the role probably expanded a little bit. Wasn't up for it. Barely see him play. Damn near forgot he was there. And the Nets on a roster that on most nights is already, especially now you're getting guys like Kessler Edwards minutes. That's a nice rookie, by the way. Kessler Edwards is a lot of fun because he's able to fit into that Nets squad so easily, especially when they're healthy. Stretch the floor a little bit. You can be out there at the power forward position, hanging around the wing, waiting for somebody to kick to him. But then also he's a guy that you can put on another team's best player. Not say stop him, but you could save Harden. You can save KD from having to do that, because you never want to do that. You already have Ben Bree that you put out there for those type of situations. Then Kessler Edwards too. You got fouls that you can give. The fouls that if you have to, he's got fouls that he can give, because you're not necessarily asking him to be a stopper or anything. I'm not really sure what you're gonna get for Paul Millsap though. I went on a little Kess Club rant there. I was just thinking, because he was on the G League show last week too. Yeah, Paul Millsap, I'm not sure what you're gonna get for him at this age. And I wonder, Joe Harris is gonna come back. We've also forgotten about him, so it's not like they don't have a shooter coming back this season. What do you get? What are you looking for if you're trading Paul Millsap? Are you looking for another defender possibly? Or are you looking for yet another shooter? I guess on this roster, I would probably lead towards, I just don't know what Millsap's value is, but 3 and D if you can. 3 and D if you can. Because again, I think as it gets later in the postseason and the fact Kyrie's not going to be there, I think defense is going to be a bit more important. That is just going to be so fascinating, though, for the games that Kyrie is not there. Watching KD and Harden create as much as humanly possible against a contending team, and then kind of leaning into your defense to do the rest, if at all possible. So we'll see what Millsap's market is. And I guess he'll be out of here in another 2 weeks. That was a very short-lived experiment. The Kyrie experiment is still going on, the part-time thing. Gotta say, obviously, he looked like he hadn't really lost much. Still got the quickness, all the handles. So being out for half a season didn't wash him. That's cool. They lost to the Wolves last night. They've won a couple of games. What exactly is their record? All in all, what's their record with Kyrie Irving on the floor right now? It's weird because you'd never know when he's playing and when he's not. Played in Cleveland the other night. They did lose to Cleveland, which was, yeah, so they're probably like 500 at best right now. That was a fun experience because one of the last plays involved Kyrie trying to do the normal fuckery, dribbling around everybody. And he did, but it was just the fact that it was an Okoro was the point of attack guy. He had to shed him with a screen, which is pretty difficult. And Jared Allen was right there at the level. Kyrie had to get past him, which he did. But then also Evan Mobley was sitting at the rim waiting, and it was just too much. Even for Kyrie, who can dribble around any and every obstacle, that was just too much. And that's just Cleveland's defensive core, which I may or may not have mentioned. Did that happen? When did that happen? That was against Cleveland on the 17th. That might have been on the podcast. I don't know. Now, me and Asher did a podcast last week. I don't think it was. Okay, yeah. So far with Kyrie in the lineup, yeah, you got a couple of the score box looks so weird. You got 3 wins or 2. You just never know what he's active for. Okay, so around 500. Around 500. He and Harden are basically getting acclimated because KD is out. May be a good thing for Harden because just to continue getting that rhythm back, he gets more responsibility, so he can continue working with that. I just feel like it still kind of leads to role confusion because at the end of the day, to win a championship, all 3 of them have to be there, and then so Harden won't be playing nearly the same role when all 3 of them are there. Or maybe it'll be Kyrie because Kyrie starts a shooting guard a lot of these games, if not all of them. So just a lot of weirdness surrounding the Nets, including Kyrie being fined for talking back to fans, because Cleveland fans were being ungrateful for the championship they brought him. And Kyrie called him fucking ungrateful, which, yeah, I would agree with that. Because Kyrie was like, I brought y'all a championship, still, I helped bring y'all a championship, something like that. Still fucking ungrateful. Fan goes, yeah, won. Unbelievable. The audacity. That's a crazy comeback. Yeah, you won 1. It is Cleveland. That's even crazier coming from Cleveland. From a Cleveland fan. That's insane. Whatever. Speaking of Cleveland, Larry Markkinen, high ankle sprain, allegedly. Glad because it looked way worse when he was on the floor. But damn, the Cavaliers have fought everything. Coming into this season, 0 expectations, wondering how you're going to make this roster fit. Then it does. You end up being one of the better team in the East. Markkinen disappeared at the very beginning, so that was one thing. And he helps this work, by the way. He's part of this whole tall ball experiment. But you lose him at the beginning to COVID. Okay, he comes back. Then Jared Allen goes out. Cool. Then Mobley looked like he was going to be out for a month, and he came back. Cool. And then guys start going out permanently. Rubio tears his ACL. Sexton out. Which may or may not be a good thing, honestly. I really like what Darius Garland's been able to do with that. But either way, out. Now Markkinen, who knows when he'll be back. Damn, how much more can they take, bro? They were supposed to already have started sliding. You just wonder how much more can they take at this point. High ankle sprains normally cost a while, so we'll see what they end up doing with those starting lineups. Gonna have to lean even heavier into some more scoring, probably from Darius Garland. It's really just Garland, Mobley, and Allen. You're just gonna have to do as much as you can defensively with those 2, and then offensively with those 3. It's very unfortunate because you start to wonder, fully healthy, how far could this team have really gone this year? But it's a young team, so it's no expectations yet. I have not spoke about the All-Star votes, which is basically where we're getting. But before we do that, since that's a little bit loosely related, final Lakers talk. I kind of saved them for the end here. Westbrook got benched. what was Melo doing on defense on that play against Indiana? And why is there a Westbrook and Wall part 2 swap on my timeline? Done? Nah, I'm not done. Yeah, so him getting benched, as I understand from what happened in that game, and then following some of the people who were really closely involved with the Pacers, they didn't like the way, aside from other things that were happening in that game, I think the one that really got him put away was how he guarded Karis LeVert. They wanted to guard him to a certain side. He did not. He was benched. They lost the game, and it's causing more turmoil, more dialogue, because you start to hear people saying he's being scapegoated. But then also there's been Vogel defenders this year. At the beginning, I think I was closer to a Vogel defender, because I was asking, what is he supposed to do with this roster? But now that you've gotten people back, like you have a Matt Reeves, and you've gotten more your lineup, you're missing AD at this point and Kendrick Nunn. Now they're asking, okay, why is Ariza and Avery Bradley playing so many minutes, and Matt Reeves is playing 5? Or why is the starting lineup like this? Why? Just why? The lineup questions are becoming more valid for Vogel, and he's starting to find himself on a hot seat. Because one thing about a Lakers team is you cannot come into a season with these type of expectations and perform this way. They need Anthony Davis back expeditiously. I feel like they're going to, and as I say this, he's going to be fired as soon as, as a matter of fact, let me get on Twitter and make sure he hadn't been fired. Because I'm like, bro, I'm going to hop right off of this podcast and find out Frank Vogel got fired while I was podcasting. Is there anything for Vogel? I swear if this pops up that he's fired. Nah, he's not. That would have been the first thing that popped up. Okay, so he still has a job at the time of this recording, but it is, I kind of felt like AD was supposed to come back against the Heat last night. It seems like they would at least wait until he came back, so then we could get to the final judgment of Frank Vogel lineups and team performance overall. But the Westbrook benching, that is leaning into a realm that I had been saying all season isn't really possible with his name and his contract, and not him being benched for certain games, because regardless of who you are, if you're playing a certain way or you're not contributing to winning, you're liable to be benched, unless obviously your name is like LeBron James or something. But I've been saying there was no way he would ever end up coming off the bench, but now it's like leaning into that territory where, okay, the team is starting to acknowledge that some of the things that he does are detrimental. He had a good game last night against the Heat. I feel obliged to mention that. But this is the Pacers game, and there was just a lot that came after that. I don't think he spoke to the media that night, but then later we got a quote, and he was just like, I don't mind. I've done what's asked of me. I'm just mad we lost the game. It's just a whole mess, man. It's an entire mess. The defensive switch that happened was even more of a mess. So without Westbrook in the game, I believe there was a dagger. I think it was Karis LeVert. And Melo saw one of the Pacers players dive down the middle. I believe he thought that he was supposed to tag, or he was supposed to switch even, and somebody else was supposed to switch on his assignment. The thing that was weird is just the Pacers offense was all kind of standing there, so there wasn't really that much movement on offense to warrant that. There's a lot of questions on whose defensive mistake it actually was, because I think he saw what LeBron was doing and assumed that he was supposed to move a certain way. Either way, the Lakers just moved, and then Carmelo Anthony moved, and it left LeVert, who was just standing there, wide open, and he shot, and that was basically that. And so your options right now being Melo, and then Trevor Ariza also just not ideal at all. Very much not ideal. And did a lot of Westbrook talk last week. Now the Westbrook and Wall reswap comes up. Again, one of those trade rumors, don't know if they're true, and I don't understand why they would be true. I just don't. At this point, I've seen Laker fans, and I like Stanley Johnson a lot, and I like what he brought to the team, and think he's obviously a positive for them. But at this point, I've seen high-level Laker fans just giddy about how apparently this was a guy that was going to save them. And he did good things for them, but saving, Stanley Johnson, that's I don't know about saving. And now I'm seeing justification sometimes this week about what John Wall would be to the team. And I just don't see how that would fix any of their issues. I really don't. other than saying you're taking away all of Westbrook's negative qualities, I guess. Maybe it would help them that way. But also, I feel like teams are, and we haven't seen a lot of John Wall in a while. So last time we saw him, we knew he was still fast. I mean, he's still capable of penetrating a defense. That's cool. But also, does he at this age help you defensively? And I still feel like teams would be happy to crunch and not necessarily pack the paint, but just, okay, if LeBron is standing on the wing with the ball and Wall is on the opposite wing or he's in the middle, whatever, I feel like they're happy to dare John Wall to shoot for a while. He had a stretch early in the Rocket season last year where it seemed like he'd worked a lot on that shot and that it might improve. But I still feel like on this specific Lakers team where you have to choose, I think they'd be happy with that. You know who would help that? Possibly Kendrick Nunn, who we've seen none of. And I don't think that he's going to save them either. Westbrook Wall reswap is also probably only coming up because it's one of the only realistic trades, I guess, with that contract. If Westbrook were to be offloaded, I think that's one of the only, it was when he was traded for Wall the first time, it was one of the only things they could do. And it's still one of the only things they could do. I think that's what's happening there. But I don't know. Last night watching them against the Heat, which the Lakers came back in that game, they fell down way early. I mean, he just took them apart defensively with ball movement. LeBron James went off. I think Westbrook had a good fourth quarter. They nearly blew it, but they didn't, so doesn't matter. Goes in the L column. But while they were down, I just started to think about that time that the Cavaliers roster got traded while I was at lunch. Just everybody, bro. They just got yeeted. Me and my friends were in the cafeteria, and I just got tweet after tweet. Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose. It was just wild. I don't know. I think that sound effect might be too loud. I might have to cut that one out. It was like bye to everybody. And so it got me thinking, man, is this where we're headed with LA? Everything from LeBron checking the stat sheet that one day to the fact that the center is no longer really saving them the way it kind of seemed that it could. I'm like, man, but we just gotta wake up and see everybody traded in the next 2 weeks. I don't know. Like I said, I still want to see just AD get back before any nukes go off. Okay, I'm done with Lakers talk now. It's not any better than it was last week. Last All-Star vote check, which I had up and is interesting. Wow, I really had that shit up and now it's just not here anymore. Do you know how much that makes me want to fight? There it is. LeBron James is the leader of all of it now. How that happens, I mean, it's LeBron James, but there is a method on Twitter, but it happened. LeBron James is 6.8 million votes. KD is not going to be there, which to me means Jason Tatum will probably be replacing him. Steph Curry is still leading guards in he's leading guards period, but leading guards in the Western Conference by country mile. Klay Thompson is fourth above Devin Booker. Russell Westbrook is above Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards. Yeah, in other words, all this is a mess. Kyrie is above Fred VanVleet. The Kyrie's only gonna raise now. I mean, people want to see him in an All-Star game. Could that actually happen? Obviously it couldn't happen as a starter, but could that really happen? I don't think that could still happen, right? He hadn't played enough games. I don't know. I mean, I would. Yeah, it walks a fine line between guys that you want to see there versus, damn, he really just jacked somebody's spot. Because I obviously want to see Kyrie in an All-Star game. I don't think it could happen, though. Darius Garland is leading Jaylen Brown. Still behind D Rose, though. Yeah, I think these are the final returns, too. So the starting lineups pretty much look how we thought they would. Andrew Wiggins is third, by the way. Wiggins propaganda. Yeah, that's basically it for the All-Star votes. Nothing too much there. I do want to end on a couple of notes. You may be seeing Gerald Green back in the league at some point. I think he's played 3 games in the G League now for the Rio Grande Vipers. He hasn't played any basketball in years, so his shooting percentages aren't that great, but physically he looks good to me. Still dunked. He got up there. He's floating around the perimeter. The percentages, once again, not that great, but as it goes on, I think maybe they will get up and a team might say, hey, we could use a shooter. But then also, I kind of feel like if Gerald Green was signed by a team, you would see him there, but I'm not sure if you would end up seeing him play. Not sure what he's like defensively at an NBA level, but just putting it across your desk that you may see Gerald Green make a return as we've seen Lance Stevenson make one. could happen at a certain point. The final note, I wanted to talk about the 2K rewards last week, but I had Asher on, and I don't even think he plays 2K. Season 4 rewards. First of all, I have barely played 2K in a while. I've been doing Sims this year. I just said, look, I've been playing 2K for years. Kind of like just slim it down a little bit or sim it down. Been doing the 2009 sim, but I'm still paying attention to Park. Me and my friends, me Nikias, if we play, shout out to him, Dunker Spot, Basketball News Network articles. And then obviously Kobe, if you were in the streams, you saw we played too. But we just don't be having time to play like that anymore. The rewards also did not inspire me though. Cause I was gonna come back. I was looking at them, I'm like, okay, this is cool. But the reward for season 4 apparently was a tiger that you unlock and you have to buy. So if you unlock it, it's the chance to go buy it for some crazy amount of VC. And then if you hit legend, you get a parrot. Bro, there's just more rewarding video games to play. That's just how I feel. So I like 2K Play Now Online. I think during the summer, you'll probably still see me play. You'll probably see me get back to it and play Now Online. But when it comes to modes that you have to pour hours and hours into, it gets difficult to justify with stuff like this. And so if you tell me my reward for doing all the work to get to level 40 is that I get to buy a tiger that will walk around with me, that doesn't feel worth it. That doesn't entice me to play. This is just legitimate criticism. Because I don't even talk about 2K as much anymore. And I hadn't played it as much anymore. But this is just legitimate things to like help. The park is painstaking sometimes, and I think they had made it better by getting rid of the right left cheesers basically and making them actually have to play legitimate basketball by nerfing their speed. I think that was a step in the right direction for sure, because park used to be completely unbearable. So it's not completely unbearable in my opinion anymore. If I had to play that long to get a tiger, I'm not gonna feel like making time for me and Nikias and Kobe to go play. I'm not gonna hit him up every night to go play if this is all I'm working for. And then legend, that's the other thing. So in season 1, they gave out a go-kart. I was like, oh damn, that's fire. Go-kart is actually a cool reward to me. I felt compelled to get the go-kart and get those hours to play a go-kart. But then legend, I would have had to hit level 44 times. And last season's reward, I talked about it on the podcast when it happened. Last season's reward was that light up Christmas themed suit. Not playing all that time to get a light up Christmas themed sweater, fam. And so then all that builds up to the legend so I can buy a parrot? Huh? That's wild.
Bruh. Huh? What the hell was that?
How, Sway?
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
That's the one I wanted to press. I went through like 4 sound effects to get to that one. I did not simultaneously play that many on purpose. Yeah, no, that's just wild to me, bro. That's wild to me. Shout out to you if you hit legend. I'm just not really into it. I'm just sticking with my Sims for a while. Letting the season end, and then I'll probably play some P&O, you know, get back to my old head mode. Because I would say for the time that I played 2K, I had actually gotten good. I had played so much park over the first few months that the shooting in this game so easy. When I got to play now online, that translated so well. And playing with Nikias and playing with those two, they're such high IQ players that it really made me a lot better. I felt like I was on a roll that I just kind of fell out of love with playing for the moment. So yeah, I just wanted to mention the 2K rewards. And I will also mention that at the end of this podcast, you can rate it. Mention at the beginning. Much appreciated, all y'all. Get it up to 400 at some point. That'd be nice. Also on here, get the like button and comment and sub, and hit the bell next to my name for notifications. And you'll see every time a new podcast drops. This one is dropping on a Monday on both platforms. I will be back next week as we continue to follow the 75th NBA season.